This is Chris Kell with a couple fixes and teaching progressions for the simple bodyweight squat. Now the squat often gets a bad rap because people are doing it with poor form. You know, we're seeing knees internally rotating, we're seeing a lot of quad dominance, and really the squat can be a very hip dominant movement, just kind of based upon the angle of the tibia. All right, when people are squatting down, either we're going to see this where the knees are really angled, it's kind of an angled tibia, everything is pointing this way, or a vertical tibia where they're pointing straight up and you're sitting back on your heels. Okay, just like the deadlift, the first thing that we want to teach with this movement is the hip hinge. All right, so what I would do to teach somebody this movement, first thing I would do is, again, I'd tell them either pretend it's a bad dance move, stick your butt out, hinging from the hips versus the knees, okay, or I would do what's called a potty squat. Okay, I'd just simply, utilize a step or something that they can sit back onto, tell them to watch their position, and I'd tell them to sit down, because what they're going to do, stick their butt out and sit down. It's a motion that we practice every day. Have them practice this a couple times. Just have them, do it naturally. They'll kind of learn the movement, and then that kind of turns on the light for most people. They kind of see what they're doing, and that helps to pattern the movement. Okay, once that is the case, what we want the client to do is just sit back, kind of pause at the bottom, and come back up. All right. The other thing that we look for often, one of the major compensations that we see, okay, are internally rotated knees, meaning when the client is coming down, the knees are coming here. Okay, what we want to do, okay, is we want to press out. Okay, you want to abduct the knees while keeping the feet straight as we're going down. What you can do to simulate this is kind of just press in a little bit. As the client is descending, kind of provide a little bit of a valgus force, meaning you're pushing to the side here, and the client will, and tell them, resist me, don't let me push your knees in. What will happen is the client will push out, they'll feel the proper the proper stimulation of the outer hip muscles here, the gluteus medius and the hip abductors, and that's what we want. All right, so just have the client practice. This is a great warm-up exercise. Sitting back on the heels, just performing that. Another thing that you can do is utilizing a dowel rod, kind of as a counterbalance. A great way to connect the upper and the lower body as you're squatting down is to simply counterbalance against yourself. Just using that, kind of lining everything up as you're sitting back. All right. Once that's the case, or if the client still doesn't really get it, if they have excessive forward lean, what we can do is we can utilize the Cook band to accentuate that movement. Okay. If they're leaning forward like this as they're coming down, what that's going to do is pull them into flexion. So what they're going to, and it's kind of just about turning the light on, exaggerating the compensation, so they learn to fight against it, to learn to sit back onto their heels, and at the same time providing them a little bit of support, to give them some feedback. As they become better at that, we simply move them off this thing, remove some of the carpet squares until they can get down to parallel. Okay, once the client can sit back to that degree, what we're going to do, just add a little bit of weight in the form of, a goblet squat. This is one of my favorite teaching progressions for the squat because it really helps to ingrain some hip mobility. Again, just asking the client to sit back, pause for 1 or 2 seconds, and coming up. For some reason, holding this thing really helps to force the client back into a little bit more of a hip flexion. Sit back on the heels, maybe push the knees apart a little bit at the bottom, and come back up. Again, it's a touch and go squat. The same rules apply. And from there, we can kind of either get into weighted front squat variations or offset variations where you're just holding on one side, a little more advanced, just stabilizing, keeping the abs tight, and just working the movement from a variety of angles. That's the common techniques that we use to progress the squat, and that is segment 3.